Hello, everyone, and welcome to our fourth grade transition meeting. The purpose of our meeting tonight is for our third grade students to be able to learn about fourth grade and for our fourth grade parents to be able to learn about the upper school. We want everyone to feel comfortable. It's a great experience, and we want you to get all of your questions answered before we go into the summer. Before we get started, though, third graders, I would like to let you know that I've been speaking with your third grade teachers, and they have told me that you have had a great year. So I'm excited to see you as a fourth grader and see you come over to the upper school. So Mrs. Roth, let's get started for our program.
Okay, hello everyone.
All right, so welcome to our fourth grade transition meeting.
Okay, expectations of students in fourth grade. Be respectful of all and to all. Be responsible both at home and at school. They go hand in hand. Complete all work, whatever's been assigned, make sure you complete. Work quietly and always do your best. You always want to make sure that you're doing the very best that you can do.
And also, who's who at Charlotte Prep for next year? At the present time, everyone is coming back that we are aware of. For example, I'm going to be there. I am going to be just down the hall from you in the upper school. Mrs. Forbes will be back. Mrs. Malgeri will be back. Mrs. Wood will be back in the business office. Mrs. David will be at the front desk. And also, our fourth and fifth grade work as a team in the upper school. So not only will you be with Mrs. Roth, but you will also see Mrs. King throughout the day. Currently, we have 2 assistants in the fourth and the fifth grade. And right now, that is Rachel, Michaela, and it is also Mrs. Bentliff. Mrs. Bentliff will also be your teacher in STEM. So you'll get to work with all of those individuals and you'll have a great learning experience. For Spanish, you know Mrs. Morales, you'll be with her. You'll be with Coach Monticchio for PE, Mrs. Hester for art, Mr. Candia for music, and also Mr. Candia will be teaching you technology. So you're going to learn a lot of things with technology like PowerPoint, like Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Classroom. You'll be learning a lot of different technology things as you get in the upper school.
Okay, here's just a little outline of what our day looks like. Between 8 and 8:15, students arrive. At 8:13, students leave the lanai, go to their lockers, and then enter our classroom, where they begin morning work. Morning work, 3 independent things that they work on in the morning: some math, some reading, and some grammar. Then after that, that goes right into our math lesson. After math, at around 9:15 or so, we have a little break for a snack, and I read a story aloud during that time. That's followed by their special classes each day. On Monday, it's art, Tuesday, music, Wednesday, PE, Thursday is tech class, Friday is also PE, and on both of their PE days, they wear their PE uniforms to school and then just bring their regular uniform to change into afterwards. On Thursday at 10:57, they have Spanish. Every other day of the week, they're in my class at that time. That's followed by lunch at 11:45, which goes till 12:20. So it's lunch and recess, and most days the fourth and fifth graders will stay outside for a little additional recess as well. 12:20 to 1:18 is regular class time. 1:18 to 2:08 on Monday and Wednesday is STEM. Every other day, regular class time. Some more class time at 2:08 to 2:50. And then and that's usually our science or social studies time. And then by 2:50, of course, getting ready to go home, parent pickup being at 3 o'clock.
Okay, let's talk about the curriculum, Mrs. Roth.
Well, reading is comprised of literature. We read whole class books. AR That's broken up by each quarter, 16 points for the first quarter, 18 the second, 20 for the third, and 22 points for the fourth quarter. That goes towards their reading grade as well, as does Wordly Wise, which will start usually in January or February, depending on the class. Then we have language arts. Language arts being comprised of spelling. We have a spelling book, but we also use Spelling City. We have English, which is comprised of grammar and essay writing. And then, of course, we're perfecting our cursive handwriting. Math, every day is a problem of the day, which is a higher level thinking type questions that they work on. We work on new skills and concepts. And then, of course, we also do a math journal, which is another fun way to enhance the different concepts that we're learning. And then science and social studies, where we alternate between those subjects. I just find it's easier with the amount of vocabulary and studying that's involved in those subjects at this level, just to work on one of those subjects at a time. So we alternate between the two.
Okay, let's answer some questions that parents might have. So the first one, why does Building 2 start at 8:15? Since you have been in the Montessori building, your day started at 8:30. We in the upper school start at 8:15 because we find that we need a little bit more time in our day. Plus, we have announcements in the morning. I know that you heard some of the announcements in the middle school. I mean, in the Montessori building, but we actually have more of the announcements over in the upper school, as well as we need a little bit more time in our middle school. So that's why we start at 8:15. Mrs. Roth, how much homework will my child have?
That's a good question. Monday through Thursday, students have homework. The homework, there are usually 3 subjects each night. There's always spelling homework. There's always the grammar homework to review whatever skill we were working on in class. And then the third subject will either be the science or social studies, depending what we're working on. Typically, there's not math homework because the children do have enough time in class to complete their math lessons. But if they weren't able to get it all done, then they would be bringing that home as well. But typically, it's 3 subjects each night, and that is Monday through Thursday. In addition, there could be some studying, of course, for whatever tests that they're going to have.
Okay, parents, what is the grading system? Now, this year, being in the upper school, you will see more grades. So, for example, an A is 90 to 100, a B is 80 to 89, a C, of course, is 70 to 79, and so forth. So you will see more grades. Now, Mrs. Roth, how will a parent know if their child is having a low grade, which is very important?
Well, every week I send home a weekly folder. In that weekly folder are all of the graded papers from that week, whether it's classwork, tests, whatever it is, whatever has a grade on for that week gets sent home, usually on a Wednesday or a Thursday. Lots of times it's mostly on Thursdays, but sometimes on Wednesdays, depending. But anyway, it goes home weekly. And so parents are required to sign that folder, return those papers back to me. And of course, if there are consistent low grades, well, then obviously I would be reaching out to you and not just relying on the folder going home.
And the other thing, you can look in facts and see exactly if an assignment is not turned in. In the Montessori building, you really have not worked in facts very much. You didn't need to, but coming to the upper school, facts will be something you will want to know. So you can get in the grade book, you can see if there's a missing assignment, you can see grades on tests and so forth. So that is something you will want to make sure that you start with at the very beginning. Mrs. Roth, you take the next question also. Is instruction given to the whole class or in small groups or a combination of both?
And I always just say yes. We do all of that. There's, some individual instruction, and then we also have small group instruction. There's whole class instruction. And it's not just one thing. It varies depending on what it is we're doing, but mostly it depends on the needs of the students. And it's not so much, well, this is how we do this or this subject. It really depends on what the concept is, and it depends on the students and what their needs are, whether we're going to break into small groups or do whole class.
Okay, and this next question, I know our boys and girls are wanting to know because you get lockers. Yay, this is one of the most exciting things that you like about the upper school. You will have a locker partner. So basically your locker will be assigned to you. So you'll come into the upper school and we will say, okay, you have locker number 1. You will have a partner with you in that locker. She or he will share half of the locker with you. And then also you can decorate your locker. You just cannot use tape or anything that will scratch the locker. A lot of things have magnetic, so those are some of the things that you will want to get for the lockers. But most of your books will be in your desk in the classroom as a 4th grader. Like in middle school, your books will be in your locker. But you will be able to keep in your locker personal things like your PE uniforms and other things like that. Mrs. Roth, is there anything you want to add to that question?
No, mostly, as you said, all of their books are kept in their desk. And really the only thing in their locker would be their snack and the change of clothes. So there's plenty of room for what they need it for.
Okay, and next, is RenWeb Facts different for students in grades 4 to 8? So first of all, Facts is the new name for RenWeb. Even though we sometimes say RenWeb, it is called Facts. So like I said a few minutes ago, in the Montessori building, you didn't really look at Facts very much. You only looked at it when it was report card time or when you went to order a lunch. In 4th through 8th grade, you will look at it to see grades for your students on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. It will be in Facts in the teacher's grade book. You will also be able to see lesson plans in Google Classroom next year. In the past, we've put lesson plans in Facts as a 4th grader, but we are transitioning to every grade level, 4 through 8, being a Google Classroom grade level. So you will be looking for assignments in Google Classroom, and we'll give you more information about that later. All right, some more questions that a parent might have. How is lunch different, Mrs. Roth? For example, are kids allowed to sit with other grade levels during lunch? Are they allowed to use microwaves? Talk to us about that.
Well, 4th and 5th graders sit at one end of the lanai, and 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are at the other end. So it's just 4th and 5th graders down our end. They are allowed to use microwaves. They can bring things from home that need to be heated, and they'll be shown how to use the microwaves and when it's appropriate for them to do so. But yes, they are allowed to do that. And no, we don't assign seats to the 4th and 5th graders. As I said, they just sit down the one end. All the 4th graders, though, will have a couple of tables, and they can sit anywhere in those tables, and the 5th graders have their tables. So it's not, well, they have to sit at the exact same table every day. They have a choice of a few and who they sit next to and so on. So they can change it up a little bit, but 4th graders sit with 4th graders, 5th with 5th graders.
Okay, will the children have daily recess? This is something that I am very proud of for our school. Number one, we still have recess. Many schools across the nation, when you get to 4th grade through 8th grade, there's very little recess. So we have a recess at noontime right after our lunch. And then we also, in 4th and 5th grade, many times the teachers give our 4th and 5th graders extra recess. And then also we have 2 periods of PE a week. which is something we're very proud of at Charlotte Prep. So there's many opportunities for them to get up and move around. Mrs. Roth, anything else you want to say about recess?
No, just, again, the fourth and fifth graders usually do get that additional time in addition to the regular recess time. They often have days where they will be given some additional time as well. So give them plenty of opportunity to run around and play.
Also, discipline slips. How do we handle that in the upper school? Discipline slips are generated through our FACS program. So if by chance, if it is a warning, your child may get a note home, and that's how the note will be sent, will be through an email that comes from FACS. Also, Mrs. Roth will do a good job at giving you a call. She'll do a good job at maybe even, if it's something that she just wants to talk to you about, she may not put it in FACS, she may send an email. But when you get, or if you get a discipline slip from FACS, feel free to call us at any time for any questions that you have. Mrs. Roth, anything about discipline slips that you want to address?
No, you covered that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, take the next one, field trips.
Over the last couple of years now, fourth graders, we've been going to Cracker Country and Florida Industry Tour, which is held at the Tampa Fairgrounds. It's there for just the fall months, a couple of months over the fall. So we usually try and get there around October, and it's a great way. It's a living history museum, basically. So the children really get a feel for, Florida history, which of course is, what we study in fourth grade. So that's always a fun trip. Also, another trip that I like to do with them is to go to the Naples Zoo. And that one we usually do around February when the weather is still cool. Somewhere in between there, we usually end up, it just works out that we usually end up going to see something either at CPAC or it would be to the Van Wezel. And then this year we were set with a trip through the STEM class, basically, was to go to the Charlotte Environmental Center. So hopefully fourth graders will be able to do that trip next year.
Okay, also, I just missed a slide that was talking about Google Calendar. And, but anyway, that is something that you are going to want to know about as well, is our Google Calendar. Our Google Calendar is something that will give you every day in the school. Also, as a fourth grader, your child will be exposed to athletics. So practices, games, everything is on Google Calendar. So make sure you download that. It is very, very important. Also, it's real time. We change it. And you'll be able to see, on Sunday night, you can look at the week's events on Google Calendar. And it's something that you definitely want to make sure that you do. Mrs. Roth, talk about our summer program.
Well, the summer program being that the children can work with Mrs. King and Mrs. Bitliff on a math prep class, just something to help the third graders transition into the Saxon math that we work on in fourth grade. So they'll be working with the students over the summer. They will begin doing it virtually, and then because that's going to start right at the end of our school year. So they'll do that virtually, and then hopefully, given the okay that students can be back in school, then they'll continue with that class back in school as well. A few things that I ask that in addition to that, that is a great opportunity, as I said, for students to get comfortable with the program that we will be using in fourth grade. And in addition to that, the students really need to make sure that they have their multiplication facts memorized. We go to facts to 12. Again, if your child knows those facts really well, it makes doing so much of what we do in fourth grade that much easier. They don't want to be struggling with the memorization of facts in fourth grade. That needs to be done prior to fourth grade. And I know they've worked really hard on third grade on that, but please to just reinforce that over the summer. And then of course we can never say, you know, you can never read too much. And so we want the students to make sure that they're continuing to read over the summer. And basically when they come back to school in the fall, they're ready to take that first AR test within the first week that they've returned to school. And that's one way to help them stay ahead with AR and not feel like they're rushing to get all their points at the end of the quarter. And then just another activity that you could do to encourage children to keep up with their writing and to write in complete sentences, because in 4th grade they are expected to write in complete sentences starting at the very beginning. So maybe they can, you know, keep a journal. And the journal could just be, you know, where they're just writing about, you know, hopefully a party that they've gone to, or a book that they've read, whatever it might be. It doesn't need to be checked or graded by anyone, but just to encourage them basically to write and to be writing in complete sentences.
Okay, so Mrs. Roth, if I'm correct, you are encouraging everybody to have a book read when they come into school in August so they can take an AR test to get ahead of the game. Also to make sure they practice their math facts and practice writing. And then also, Mom and Dad, the free math class that Mrs. King and Mrs. Bentliff do for the kids, please make sure that your child does that. You know, typically we have the children, as Mrs. Ross said, come into the school, but at the very beginning, we think it will probably be a virtual class, just like they've been doing with Zoom. So they're familiar with how that goes. And then just as soon as we can have the kids back at school, they'll be coming into the school to finish up the class. So please make sure that's a free class, and it is well worth the one time a week that the teachers have planned for that. Okay, and in closing, Mrs. Roth, any closing words that you have?
No, just that, you know, usually we would take some questions at this point. So if anyone has questions, they need to send those in to either of us so that we can answer those questions for them, and that hopefully this helps them have an idea of what their child will be coming into in 4th grade. So I would just like to say, you know, thank you to everyone for taking part in our meeting, and I look forward to working with you and your children in the fall. And please stay well and have a safe and happy summer.
And 3rd graders, what I would like to say, if we were in school, this is what I believe the 4th graders would say to you. The 4th graders would say, hey, at the very beginning, I had a lot to learn. But by the end of the year, I'm leaving knowing that I have learned a lot and I am ready for 5th grade. So I want you to know that you can also do this. It is very, very manageable. Mrs. Roth is a great teacher. There's a lot of help for you. And also, parents, I want you to know that Mrs. Roth is approachable. Feel free to contact her at any time throughout the year. And I'm looking forward to a wonderful year next year. So boys and girls, you know how to get a hold of me. You can email me yourself if you have a question, and I will forward it to Mrs. Roth. Parents, you know how to get a hold of us as well. We miss seeing you, we love you, and we're looking forward to a great start of a school year in August. So Mrs. Roth, anything else?
That's it. Thanks for being here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.